Hello, guys. How we doing tonight? Nice to see you in here, okay? And let's see. All right. How's sound? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me as well? Now I can see it. I can say that. You can see me and see my screen. So that's nice. Give me a little confirmation chat, guys. Awesome. You can hear me, right? Awesome. There we go. Bit of a weird day, strange day for myself. I actually couldn't trade this morning. I had some different stuff to do. I'm going to be reviewing this with you guys live. I haven't even opened my charts up until this PM session. I wanted to see what it was like with Trump speaking and things like that. But we'll definitely get right into it and see what it's like. I do want to ask, is the stream jittery? Like, for example, when I have a preview here, it looks a little rough. Is this smooth? Is what I'm wondering. Because a virtual video, by the way, you guys can see my camera as well as my screen, um, is why, pretty much, but it's lagging a little bit, it seems like. If it's lagging, yes, exactly, Alex. I'm wondering about the quality of the stream you guys see in Discord, because I can't really see a preview of it. Should be smooth, right? So if it's not smooth, then something's wrong there. Just wondering, right? I'm still getting set up. I am unfamiliar with all those things. A little laggy at times, mostly fine. Okay. Okay. Well, look. I will. Okay. Well, I won't be able to fix that today anyways, unless I spend the next 20 minutes on it, but I'll definitely work on it for the next streams because I have a computer that is able to run some high quality, so we might as well make use of it. Yeah, a little French flag there. That's awesome. All right, we'll dive right into it, right? From a higher times frame perspective, we finally hit our objective, right? I've been talking about it for the last 2 weeks now, right? How we've been stuck in a range, and we finally broke one extremity of that range. Now, is our objective going to be lower? Well, Trump. That's my answer to things right now. With Trump, I don't think I can make some long term or even midterm predictions with any sort of accuracy. So I do want to give you guys this as a disclaimer. I don't feel confident in predicting price in conditions like these, so I just focus on intraday frameworks, right? I'm going to trade from a day-to-day perspective instead of saying, for example, during some parts in January, I was just like, okay, well now I want to see higher, so I'm going to hold my trade over multiple days and just look for higher, right? This is why I opened the live account and moved away from prop firms. I wanted to be able to hold overnight and have one trade that catches the whole week expansion instead of just having three different trades. Little insight there. But definitely, could we reverse at this point? Of course, we have SMT, but the most obvious target is going to be for ES to finally go and reach these highs. It just has had a rough time. There's a lot of low resistance liquidity there. I feel like ES has to explode to these highs there. Could it happen during the rest of the week? 100%. But honestly, knowing the conditions we're in, we're probably just going to slow down and retrace into our current range, which we seem to be forming something like here. So we'll have to see. That's my official answer for the future. But for today specifically, you had a lot of nice frameworks that you could use. From a perspective of the Rice trading model, we'll see right now because I have no clue. Just looking at price, right? Just looking at price. First thing we always look at, and that's why I love having my midnight and daily open on my chart right away, is power of three. I see accumulation. I see a clear manipulation of price. Now, of course, I want to see if that has been confirmed with SMT. I don't see any SMT on the 15-minute time frame. I see this, of course, divergence, previous divergence, and I don't see, there was some SMT here with was in the basically rebalanced as I was talking about actually last peer review convergence right? This is just a term I like to use. Once we get to the lower time frames, we might see some, but up till then, I could frame this as a possible low of day, but just not be very confident due to the lack of SMT. That's always how I frame things, but I'm always looking for one thing, right? Where's my manipulation? And more importantly, where does the manipulation end? Because that is the only valuable point of information that I need for my own trading. I don't care about the accumulation. I don't care about where the manipulation starts. I only care about where it ends, and that's where I want to start trading, and that's where I frame reversals. So from this point on, I'm looking for reversal opportunities to go long during New York. We have a clear higher objective. What I mean by daily frameworks is it's not always going to be a session liquidity. So for example, in this case, sorry about that, still feeling a little sick, we'd have a London framework, but to the downside, right? Telling us that we should target London lows since London highs, well, actually, London highs are here. We took him out with the news. So yes, you technically have a London framework here where you'd anticipate price to reach to this level. Honestly, no good reason for it not to work. And if any one of my students would have shorted here, I would have just said, well, you know what? You were offside today, but you stuck to your rules. As long as you manage your risk well, this is just a losing day. Those happens. So definitely a nice framework. We'll have to see at 9:30 on a 1-minute chart, of course, if it would have given you an entry. But I would have definitely accepted, I guess, that someone could target this. But from my own standpoint, I always look at power of 3. And from that, I can frame only longs for that specific day. So even though on my higher time frame chart, price is more unclear for me, well, I can frame that because of what the day has currently done. And if you want to name it that, you can name it a daily profile, that I anticipate that we will move higher. And then I go to my higher time frame chart and look at what are my levels for higher, right? So on my daily chart, what are my levels for higher? Well, of course, I have previous week high, which is this level right here, that also formed equal highs. Are they equal? I feel like this one's a tad bit higher. Let's look. I'm always looking at the values top left of the screen. 21,968 and we have 21,966. So this is actually just a tad bit higher. So you have previous week high here and you have the equal highs above. Just very clear objectives that all were framed from the fact that we had a nice daily power of 3, which would incite us. I'm forgetting the word, but would give me ideas of upside, right? That is how simple I can put it. So from that point, I would be looking for longs. And of course, we had 8:30 news. We also had Trump speaking in the afternoon. That's more of a wild card, right? So I'll just make sure that I'm out of my trade before then. And of course, I can look for a trade after then, but I don't want to be in a position during. What price difference do you consider to make net relative equal high or low? I don't have a number for you. That sucks. I'd love to have a number for you. But for example, I look at this and these are equal highs for me. And it's really just a visual thing for me of understanding the narrative, right? As we talked about, again, last Pierre review was a big one, right? But here, why did we go up here? To induce these levels. So yes, this is a fake move. So framing that this is my manipulation, why did we do this? To induce this level, and this is a level that will be important for us to break. So it's really just about narrative for me, but I don't have a clear number for you. And for example, I won't say that this is an equal high to this, right? This is too far for me. And here, let's go look at a distance. But that's the thing though, it would need to be distance per time frame, because this range, if I would look on a daily chart, I might say these are equal highs, but they're like, I don't know, 100 handles apart. Let me try and find an example here. Well, here, that's actually very close, but here, 60 handles apart is an equal high on the daily time frame. But if I go down, where were we? In the 15-minute chart, 20 handles is not an equal high, right? So it really depends on the time frame, but sorry, I can't give you a better answer. For me, it's really just a visual thing. I definitely do have to run some stats on there for probability of equal highs being met based on their distance between. But yes, definitely need to get that. So as I was saying, right, definitely we had our news at 8:30. Did we have SMT actually? Let's go look at that. I don't see any on the higher time frame, right? If we go down to the 1 minute, possibly. So let's actually go check. We had our 8:30 news right here. Wow, that's a hell of a gap. So, and that's some weird ass movement. Went up 16 points. So what is that? 150 handles? Just 80. I was way off. 80 handles, and we took out all the sell side on both assets. All right, so no SMT at the news lows. It doesn't seem, possibly in the 1 minute, but it doesn't seem like there are any SMT at the news high either. So what did the news do? We just formed a range. And usually when I see a news form a range, I'm going to look to go from one side to the other. But we had some big defense right here, right at 833. That clearly pushed price higher. Let's look at it. And let me actually use, for once, the right color for this. Honestly, looking at this, I'm quite happy I wasn't in front of my charts because I see 830. And if we run super aggressively like that, taking out one of the objectives we have pointed out, which in this case is current day's high, I would be framing retracements. And it didn't really give me any opportunity for entry. And now perhaps you'd look to short this continuation to the London lows. It's definitely a trade I would consider, to be honest, right? Even though we ran already so much, there is still upside to London lows, which is just current low of day, by the way, in this case, right? The London framework that we discussed at the start of this call, definitely this would be something very interesting, and I'd look to partial at the news low. Very great setup in my book. As long as there was SMT, it would be A+. There is some divergence here, just not from a swing point to swing point perspective. So a little bit of a weird one there, but there is lower time frame SMT, and you have a very nice 3P day array stop loss rule. This is just a loss, right? There isn't much to say to it. I like to get over them so that you guys can see the reality of trading, but the truth is, this was a great setup. I have nothing bad to say against it. Definitely something I would look to trade, but the invalidation of this trade is pretty much my reason to go long after. And that's not true for every trade, but seeing that we failed to push lower and this inefficiency shows respect, right, is being respected, then this just tells me, okay, well, we have a higher target. What's our next higher target? This level, which is previous week's high. And then we have the equal highs on our daily time frame. I took the shorts minus 1R. Yeah, honestly, I can't say anything there. At the end of the world, it's as long as it's a good loss, I'll live with it. I get mad at myself when I take bad losses, which, yes, guys, it still happens. I make a lot of mistakes. That's the truth. And in this case, I would be more than happy to pay my money for this. I like to look at it this way. I am paying for the opportunity to make a shit ton of money. That's the truth. And sometimes I need to pay price, and sometimes price is paying me. It's a love and hate relationship with NASDAQ. The trade did make sense though, KSM, 100%. I sat out after the Darth Maul candle. Darth Maul candles, wow. Fair enough. Framed the shorts, but decided to sit out. Yeah, I mean, it is a valid opinion. For myself, I like to take the trade no matter what. I just like to stick to really, there's a setup there, I'll take it. Where's the breaker on this one? Right here. Let me showcase it. As I said, a lot of movement before the breaker, right? But this is a high, a low. We swept that high, even though we went extremely wide, and then we broke that low. So a little sketchy on that end since we already ran down so much aggressively. But I would still consider taking that trade. I could lie to you guys, but definitely this is a trade that I would take. It didn't look safe to me. Fair enough. Fair enough. But yes, in this case, as I was saying, this would just be a good loss. You know what? Let's keep it on our chart because it's important to remind us that we also lose in life, right? It's important to know that. Because when you forget, you get hit in the face, and I am talking with experience. I am looking currently for SMT. I do see this, and I've told you guys this multiple times before, but when ES forms equal lows or equal highs, right? No matter. I regard it as if it did take out the previous level, and in terms of SMT, right? And I feel like every time I say this, it sounds so wrong, so I just have to tell people, but this is based on data. Okay, this is me testing out the probability of SMT. If you were there a few months ago on my Twitter, I sent out a little sneak peek of something that I was testing with SMT. Now, you guys want the data, I'm going to have that on Rise Statistics at some point. But for now, I'm telling you guys, trust me, if ES forms an equal level, act as if it took it, and that will create SMT for you. So this, for me, is a little weird, but it is SMT. So if I have a breaker setup, I could take it. Now, in this case, I don't have one, right? Except that I do have one here. A little hard to spot on the 1 minute. And you know what? We could go on a lower time frame, but I kind of don't want to confuse you guys more. If NQ create the equal, is it still SMT? No. I only view that as yes. I'm very glad that you feel like that. It's definitely a lot more stuff that needs to be added, though. Let's be honest. It's not complete yet. My pleasure, Alex. This is what I've found personally and through a wide array of testing. And I'm speaking for these assets specifically, right? So I just treat ES like this specifically. And as per breaker blocks, well, spot me a breaker block, right? Let's do the same exercise as we did yesterday. Let's mark out every breaker block after 9:30. So we have one right here. This one was a loss, right? The trade that resulted from it would have resulted in a loss. Let's actually remove the text. It's a little hard to see. What next? Okay, well, the next breaker that formed was super far to the right. So until then, you had nothing. Here, there is a lower time frame breaker, and I see it, and it's very hard for me to accept that I'm not showing you guys. I mean, you know what? Let me show you. Fuck it. But I don't recommend trading those, because if you always start looking at the lower time frame charts, you're going to get confused more often than that. But what I see is this move. And as you can see on ES, this move took it out, even though it is equal, right? As I said, it took it out, which means that this is actually not a mitigation block, if you are familiar with what that is, but that is a breaker block. And I'm so used to it now. And I see this, well, this actually got inverted later, right? Yeah, so actually your entry would be right here. I do this, okay? I go down the chart time frames when I don't have a 1 minute entry and I see a move like this. I don't know what to tell you guys. I really don't recommend it, but I feel like it's wrong for me to tell you not to do something that I personally do. So, I mean, there's no good way out of this. I told you guys, so that's how I utilize it. I go down my time frames when I don't have a 1 minute entry. If you guys want something more specific, I'm always focusing on the symmetry. So if I see this and I see SMT being formed, I understand that a lower time frame, how these candles were formed is, for example, we closed here. Then we opened slightly above, right? But we went down, we went up, we went down, then we went up. I understand that this is the movement that these candles represent. So when I see something like this, I go in the lower time frame. And yes, I usually just skip down to the 15-second right away. But yes, as you can see on my chart, on my list, these are all the time frames I utilize. Honestly, I haven't opened the 4-hour in so long. And as per monthly, 3-month, and 6-month, that's like once or twice a year. It was like vertigo. Well, if you're not used to, or really honestly not comfortable with the speed on the lower time frame charts, you really don't need to. That's the truth. But in the same way that if I would only look for 5-minute unicorns instead of 1 minute, well, I would miss a lot of trades in the same way that if I limit myself to 1 minute, I'm going to miss some moves. But by going in the 1 minute, like, honestly, you guys can probably hear me. There are like 2 trades every, I would say I average 1 trade a month that is not on the 1 minute chart. That's the truth. So is it worth your time? Not at all. Is it fun though? Yes. So I did want to show it to you guys. Other than that, you would have had a breaker here. From this point on, previous week highs already taken. And yes, you do have your final objective above, but that's a risky one. And you know what? Let's actually use our mechanical approach, right? So this would be your framework for this trade, the move you're predicting, I guess. So as long as you're below the midpoint, you can take this trade. And as you can see, unicorn entry was just below the midpoint. So you could justify this. Now, would I say that this is a great trade? Far from it. Far from it. You are way overextended. For me, it would make more sense for price to retrace, as we have seen it do right there, instead of just going straight for that. And it actually did. But before it retraced, you would have had plenty of opportunity to look for take profits. And perhaps if we use our standard deviations from our breaker, we could find a high probability objective. Not really. I would look for 2 here. This is very clearly a break even for me, but since I was up this much money, it's probably more so of a small profit trade. Something like this. Like when I can't take profit, I'll just move my stop up if it allows me to have enough risk to reward. Since there's SMT on ES with the equal lows and you consider it taking the low, wouldn't you consider NQ taking the low too, there creating a breaker? Yes. But for us to have a breaker on NASDAQ, I would still need an initial range, right? If we look on ES, we have a swing low to a swing high here. And let me just bring this cursor out, swing low to swing high, and then the next candle didn't break the high as well. So on the lower time frame chart, 100%, right? This is why we went down here. Let's actually try on the 30 second. We already saw the 15 second. That's why we went down the time frame, and see now on the 30-second chart, I have a range here. So now I can say we formed a range because there is SMT, and let's actually mark it out as such. Because there is SMT here, I can frame this as a breaker block. So once we trade back above here, this last up close candle is a breaker. And you can see you have a 30-second unicorn entry right as soon as we retrace here. So yes, I can frame this as a breaker, but it is not a 1-minute breaker. And as I said, these I use them once a month and sometimes twice. And is it worth it? I don't believe so, honestly. But at some point in your trading, you're just looking for things to get you out of being bored. So when I don't find a trade like this, I'll just look on the lower time frame chart and go half risk. As I told you guys today, I don't know how I reacted because I didn't trade this morning. So can I tell you if it would be good or bad to do this? Well, I really can't. I wish I could have traded this morning and showed you guys that I did trade this, but sometimes I do. And it's mainly when I don't see an entry and I see the move. Honestly, after a loss like this, I would definitely not be looking for any random reason to go long. I'd wait for more, and this is just not good enough for me. We're already too overextended. I prefer accepting the fact that I missed out on the move. And yes, I'm missing out on a potential return that maybe the move isn't done, but at least I'm sticking to high probability opportunities. So I really can't justify this long here. Is the standard deviation from the breaker something you invented? Results are more different than from manipulation, but more realistic. No, it's actually not something I invented. I have to give credit where credit is due. ICT talks about it he has a video with breaker. I think it's like the high probability ICT breaker or something like that. I remember watching this and seeing him take deviations from the breaker block. And I actually studied in the background, like, why? Why would you do this? And then I ran the data. One trade a day keeps blown accounts away? 100%. 100%. And now you could look for reversal, more specifically during the 1050 to 1110 macro. I do believe I see SMT somewhere here. Yes, exactly. Right at that peak on ES. And you know what? Let's be a little more realistic. Let's look to the left as well. If there was SMT before then, and here we broke it, and we did not break it. Okay, so we did have SMT beforehand. So I'm just looking for like the signal that tells you, okay, well, now you can look for a trade. So there's SMT at these levels. And if you're looking for a trade all the way up here, well, perhaps you're looking for a trade to continue here. But for me, I would only be framing... Sorry about that. only be framing retracements. And in this case, it would be an intraday retracement. And I'm going to do it again because I don't even know why I do it again. Most recent range, premium and discount. Where is my first discount and efficiency? This fair value gap. And where did we stop? This fair value gap. And now, of course, we traded lower, extremely lower, even to this implied fair value gap. But the bodies tell me what I want to know. That's the truth. And if I'm always waiting for a breaker block, I don't need to focus on the extreme precision. I only need to focus on where we form my breaker block. So this would be my target for framing retracements short. And if we look at the first bearish breaker to form, let's look at this. So of course there's SMT here, but we still need to break below the low. So I guess it would be right here, right? This seems like the first bearish breaker. It's a little hard to spot. That's why I like drawing my box and pointing it out in time, because this is swing low to the left, sorry, to swing high. So this is actually a bullish range. Oh, that's a weird one. Swing low to swing high. We went back down, not forming a swing low. I would still regard this as a breaker. And nonetheless, you know what? If this one is kind of hard to see, we have a very, very easy one just to the right of it. So you have high to low, to higher high, to lower low, right here. And then you'd just be looking for an entry. You don't have an entry PD array though. I'm looking at inversions. I'm looking at everything. You just really don't have an entry in this case right up until later here. Sorry, got a notification I had to check. Right up until we inverted this gap. So that's quite further to the right. And to be honest with you guys, I could tell you, oh yeah, of course I would have waited for us to retrace there. No, I'm shorting this. This fair value gap is overlapping. It is perfect. So I have fair value gap, then I have inversion fair value gap and order block, which actually gives you a pretty great stop. I did not expect it to. And so all the way to your final target, 6R, that is wonderful. And of course, I would look to take profit beforehand. Now, you can look for 4 standard deviations. In my case, there is nothing that's going to be stopping this trade right up until here. But now there's only one issue. Am I really going to hold a trade for 4R without getting money off? No, not at all. So here, 2R, right here, honestly, that would be safe. But for me, it would be very easy to just say 2.74R at 4 standard deviations, a great partial objective. And then, of course, your retracement objective, which is that 15-minute first discount and efficiency we talked about, would have taken a while to get there, but certainly did get there. Oh, that's also a great example. We're going to talk about this lunch rate here. Do you use that RDRB PD array? No, I do not. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. I've had someone try and explain it to me at some point, but I just forgot because I don't use stuff like that. I don't focus on the specifics. I use simple stuff. Gaps are something that are used across multiple different things, right? It's not ICT that invented this. He just gave it the most popular name, and it is the name I learned it as, so I'm going to use it. But I use gaps and I use opposing close candles, which a lot of people call order blocks. Very simple. When our objective is met during lunch, and do I have a student in here? Julian, you better get me with that one if you're here actually and not just training right now. But if we reach our retracement objective during lunch, what does this tell me? I can use the range from noon to 1 instead of noon to 1:30, which means I can look for a lunch rate beforehand. Now I see the high here. You know what? Let's stop having random lines all over the place. Let's actually remove previous week high. So we have lunch high right here, and we can use lunch low, which is here, all the way to 1 p.m. Now starting at 1 p.m. right here, let me use red, I can look for a lunch rate. And you guys can see we got that lunch rate right here. So basically, starting 1:30, I can just look for a long, targeting lunch highs first, and of course, current day's high, very great. You don't need this to look for a long, because truth is, you could just frame, well, look, I like to zoom out in cases like these. What did we do today? We opened, we manipulated lower, Then we went higher, retraced during lunch, and you can now frame continuations. Daily profile. Nothing new in this area. And from this point on, you're just looking for a bullish breaker to form. I see one right away. This one just jumps to mind. It's always easier to spot them live, I feel like, because you see it form. You see the range form. And see, I just see one even earlier here. But yes, when you're not live, you just have to kind of figure it out along the way. But this one did not have an entry, if I'm not mistaken. Or is this a fair value gap? No. And this fair value gap is way too far away from that breaker for me to even consider it. So even then, I'd be waiting for a new breaker block to form. This one did form. Did it give you an entry this time? So we're just looking for an inversion fair value gap or a fair value gap that's overlapping, right? In some sort of way. There is nothing. We just did not displace at all here. Really disgusting, actually, price action. And then as soon as we traded through here, inversion fair value gap, never traded down below it. So you'd have to enter on this fair value gap here, and we're actually already at my target. So for me, that's never a trade. Why? Because we're already at my target. Now, of course, you can enter this, and as soon as this gets hit, you're pricing your stop break even, and that would just give you a break even trade. This for me is not something I consider, especially with a failed opportunity in the morning and then a winning opportunity right after. The 3PD array stop filtered away many bad trades away from me. I am very glad to hear that. It was such a big thing for me. Such a big thing. And if I was a better content creator, I'd probably make you guys a video only about the 3PD array stop. But I hate it. So you guys steal what I tell you. Make videos, please. I don't want to. But definitely something very valuable that a lot more people should be acknowledged of and should be utilizing. I'd like to just point you guys' attention, I guess, to something very simple. See, today, if my bias was short and I simply just stuck to that bias, I would have had one loss and then a win. So even if your bias would have been wrong, because clearly the daily distribution was higher, you could have still made money. And see, me framing longs, I understand that there is a retracement here. And you'll notice I always do so at the same times. It's always 10:50 to 11:10 into lunch. And after lunch, I frame continuations. This is nothing new. I talk about it every single time. I just don't specifically point it out. Because you don't need to know that. You don't need to understand the specific mechanics and profiles of price. You just need to look for breaker blocks. At least that's my opinion. That's what I use. That's what's simpler for me. And of course, you did have that opportunity in the PM that went all the way through. As I said, for me, that's just too late, right? It is just, I see this high resistance and I just say, you know what? There is no trade for me. And when I see it run all the way here, am I mad? 100%. Because I missed out on a good opportunity. But at that time, was it the right decision? Yes. So I can live with myself. Do you guys have any questions at all about these? And yes, I'm going to leave this here for the thumbnail for sure. Clickbait as much as I can. But, I mean, it is what it is, guys. At least I'm being honest about it. What can I say? And I'm not seeing any of you guys type. So I'm guessing it was all clear. See, I need to try and make these more straight to the point. And I'm actually making some indicators that can just draw stuff for me so we can streamline these calls a little bit more, right? And I actually do think that this will help quite a bit. All right, pretty clear. Well, I wish you all the best of nights. Good luck trading tomorrow. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, but it is also a day where I don't think I'll be able to do a price action review. I'm not going to cancel it now, but I am going to give a message in chat if ever it is canceled. So I probably won't tag people on a Friday night, but do be on the lookout about an hour or two beforehand, and I'll tell you guys how I made $10,000 today in Tubdale. Yeah, I have to, but if I do that, I have to share results. And this is just something I'm not ready for. That's the truth with you guys. I've shared results in the past. You know, you can go all the way back and I can share a bunch of things, but sharing how much money I make is not something I'm comfortable with yet. Perhaps someday. Perhaps someday. Definitely if I start having a public mentorship, I am definitely gonna show results. So you guys don't have to worry about this. But if you started trading my model, you don't need my results. And if you've seen my bots, you also don't. Enough rambling here. You guys have a great night. We'll see each other possibly tomorrow. Bye, guys.